Hello, 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 and welcome back to Miss Hope's Reading Hour. I am so glad to be back. So glad to see you all. Golly, I feel like it's been like a month. It's only been a week. I miss you all. I've thought about you every day, but I had to get my homework done, y'all. So I got a good amount of homework done in the week that I was away. I still have more to go. Thank you to all of you who were encouraging to me and saying, Miss Hope, you can do it. You can finish. And I really appreciate all of your well wishes with my classes because it's a lot, okay? Because I work during the day and then I go to school and I have a lot of homework. So I just thank you all for bearing with me and telling me that you wanted to see Miss Hope's Reading Hour. I found out a couple days ago that I have some more viewers from my school. I was so happy. Like one child showed, I guess on Fridays or one day a week, the students get to share a video, like one of their favorite videos on the internet, and it was of Miss Hope's Reading Hour. I was like, oh, that makes me feel so great that people are enjoying it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But all in all, I missed you guys. I missed reading with you and sharing great stories and great books and finding out what's going on in our mystery together. I missed all of you, but I am back, okay? I have 7 more days to go in my class, and I have a few more assignments, and Lord willing, I will finish them, and I will be done and finishing strong in my class. So, my friends, how was your week? How did your week go? What did you do? How was school? My teacher friends, how was teaching? My parent teacher friends, how was having your kids home and teaching at the same time? Just how were you? Okay, I hope that you were doing well and that your week is starting off okay. This past week, we had our wonderful inauguration, our new president, Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris, and the wonderful poem by Amanda Gorman. Now, I am looking to order her book. So we will be sharing her book on Miss Hope's Reading Hour, okay? And come to find out, she has 3 books in the works, even though she already has one out. So when her new books come out, we will be sharing them on Miss Hope's Reading Hour. Good evening, Miss Brandy. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm hoping that you and your children enjoy Miss Hope's Reading Hour this evening. Now, my friends, before we get to the books, just our normal disclaimer, okay? Any music that you hear and the books that we read, unfortunately, Miss Hope's Reading Hour does not own the rights to any of that. We don't own the copyrights to that, but they are here for your listening and reading enjoyment, and that we're talking about the books. I went and I looked for some books. Actually, I have some books in my shopping cart that I'm about to order, but we still need more books, y'all. So if you would like to donate to Miss Hope's Reading Hour, look right down here in the ticker. Right down here in the ticker. You can either donate via Cash App, and the Cash App handle is HopeGM, That's HOPEGM, all one word, all lowercase. You can donate any amount via Cash App, and 100% of any donations to Miss Hope's Reading Hour goes to Miss Hope's Reading Hour Library. Or if you would like to send a digital gift card or send books directly to me, you can use the email address that is in the ticker and send those gift cards, and also the ask me about the information for sending books directly to Miss Hope's Reading Hour. Okay? Now, with all of that being said, let us get to the books that we are reading for today. Okay? So, our first book, we're talking about friends, especially new friends today. Okay? So, how do you deal with having new friends? How do you deal with your old friends being friends with your new friends? How do you deal with your new friend's personality? We're going to talk about that in some of our books, today. All right. So our first book is called Felix Stands Tall. Felix Stands Tall. And this book is by Rosemary Wells, best-selling creator of Max and Ruby. I've heard of the Max and Ruby books, so I'm going to have to look those up. All right, and this book, I'll find out when we open it. It's a Candlewick Press book. Felix Stands Tall by Rosemary Wells. Written and illustrated. All right, now our next book is called Rocket Writes a Story by Tad Mills. Rocket Writes a Story. And this is a Swartz and Wade book. Yeah, Swartz and Wade. A Swartz and Wade books book. Rocket Writes a Story by Tad Mills. That is wrong. Tad Hills. Let me get the names right, folks. Tad Hills. All right. And last but not least, we got to get back to it. Who Stole New Year's Eve? We got to get back to it, y'all, by Martha Freeman. Now, since we're talking about friends, we got to find out if eventually Yasmeen and Eve will become friends, because it's a bit of a rift between them, right? Okay. But we will get to that when we read it. All right, now our first book is Felix Stands Tall. Now, both of our beginning books have a dust jacket. Let's see if it looks the same. Why am I smiling? Tell me why. Tell me why Miss Hope is smiling. Because it looks the same underneath the dust jacket. I always like that. Because what if the dust jacket gets messed up and then it's just a solid color, and then you might be looking for a certain book and you're like, oh, I can't find it. You have to look through everything, and then you have to look at the spine and you're like, oh, there it is. But when it looks the same underneath, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All right, let's get to the story. Felix Stands Tall by Rosemary Wells. Felix, said Fiona, do you have a best friend? No, said Felix, I don't have a best friend. Can I be your best friend? Asked Fiona. I would love that, said Felix. That's settled then, said Fiona. Now we'll be in the big talent show. We will? Asked Felix. It's easy, said Fiona. We're going to win first prize. We are? Asked Felix. Fiona said, we'll sing There's a Pixie in My Garden. Do we have to? Asked Felix. Best friends do everything together, said Fiona. Felix did not want to lose his best friend. So he told his mama he wanted to be a pixie for the talent show at the Guinea Pig Jubilee. Felix's mama got out her sewing box. Snip, snip went her scissors. Zzz, zzz went her sewing machine. Pretty soon, Felix had a pixie hat, green shorts, and turned up toe shoes. Wow, his mom's talented. Hope I'm that talented once I start using my sewing machine. Fiona was all ready for Felix. Now we have to practice, she said. Fiona taught Felix to sing There's a Pixie in My Garden. Then she taught him the Texas sidestep and how to line dance in costume. Wow, that's a lot of things to practice for this talent show. I thought they were just singing a song. Many amazing acts lit up the big show. But when it came time for the audience to vote, it was Pixies in the Garden all the way to first prize. Felix's heart swelled with pride. And that's when the trouble started. What trouble indeed. It was just in a talent show. Minky, Bucky, and Dimples were waiting for Felix in the schoolyard. Here comes Twinkle Toes, they shouted. Bucky sang, There's a pixie in my soup. Dimples made fun of Felix's Texas slide step. And Minky put a slime creeper down Felix's shirt. What is their problem? That is not cool. Felix ran home as fast as he could. What happened to my angel boy? Asked Felix's mama. Felix told her about Minky, Bucky, Dimples, and the slime creeper. Felix, my angel, you're going to have to stand tall, said Mama. Wonder how he's going to do that. But Felix didn't know how to stand tall. Minky tied Felix's gym shoes together. Shall we dance? Sang Dimples. Bucky put a chirping plastic cricket in Felix's egg salad sandwich. Man, they are mean. Felix, you're a hot mess, said Fiona at lunchtime. Felix didn't want to be a hot mess. Watch me, said Fiona. Fiona stared down Dimples, Bucky, and Minky until they slinked away. I could never do that, said Felix. I'm wearing a magic protection suit, said Fiona. I don't see anything, said Felix. It's invisible, said Fiona. I have an extra. Wow. Magic protection suit comes in handy. At Fiona's house, Fiona gave Felix her extra magic protection suit. Go ahead, put it on, she said. The armor was as light as a feather, but strong. You look so brave, Felix, said Fiona. I do, said Felix. And suddenly, Felix felt brave. I guess I would too with some armor on. I would feel brave. On the way to school the next day, Felix stood tall and proud in his magic protection suit. The morning sunlight faded the silvery steel to near invisible. It didn't matter one bit. Here comes Mr. Pixie Pants, giggled Dimples. Take that back, said Felix. Felix glared at Minky, Bucky, and Dimples through his invisible visor. Clang went his invisible lance on the sidewalk. Whap went his invisible gauntlets. The troublemakers melted away like snow. Felix couldn't wait to tell Fiona. Look at that. Be gone, meanies. But before he could say a word, Fiona said, Oh, Felix, how about wearing twin cupcake costumes for the Halloween parade? Felix knew he had to stand tall again. How about being fire-breathing dragons? Said Felix. Check them out. The end. Very good story. Glad I got to read this one. Felix Stands Tall. So this book not only talks about friends, it talks about bullies and how you have to learn how to stand tall against a bully. And it doesn't always have to end in a fight or saying things that you shouldn't say out of your mouth. Sometimes you can just stand tall with them. No, I'm not afraid of you. Leave me alone. But also sometimes with your friends, you have to stand tall, right? Sometimes your friends think you should do everything that I do. We should do the same thing all the time. But you may not want to do that. And it's a struggle figuring out, well, do I want to keep them as a friend? What if they won't be my friend if I don't do what they want me to do? But a real friend will not make you do something that you don't want to do. That's why in the end, Fiona was a wonderful friend. She taught him how to stand tall, but she was a bit bossy too, right? She was kind of bossy. But Felix used what he learned from Fiona to stand tall with her too. He realized, do I want to walk around like a cupcake? If I don't, I'm going to have to stand tall with my friend. And I think he already knew that since Fiona came to his rescue the first time, that she really was a good friend. But she just needed to learn, listen, just because we're friends, you can't boss me around all the time. And I may not want to do what you want to do. And sometimes it'd be nice if you did what I want to do too. Very good story. Teaches a whole lot of lessons. Teaching that it's not good to be a bully and how to stand up to bullies and how to stand up to friends sometimes who can be kind of bossy and how to be a good friend for someone. Fiona didn't have to say he was a hot mess, but she did show him how to stand up to those people who were bullying him. Very good story. Very good. So glad I got a chance to read Felix stands tall. My friends, my parent-teacher friends. Good book, lots of lessons in it. All right, now Rocket writes a story by Tad Hills. I got it right this time. Now let's see. Oh, shucks. I'm happy twice over because it looks the same under the dust jacket. I'm excited. That makes me very happy. So let us read. Rocket writes a story. Rocket loved books, just like I do. Thank you, Miss Brandy. She likes my glasses. I'm so glad I can wear them. And it doesn't get the glare of the lights. Happy. Let's get to the story. Rocket loved books. He loved to read them to himself or to sit quietly by his teacher, the little yellow bird, as she read them aloud. Rocket even liked the way books smelled. When he opened a new book, it smelled like a place he'd never been to, like a friend he'd never met. The little yellow bird agreed. Books are inspiring. They make me sing. Rocket loved words too. After snack time, his teacher would say, Rocket, why don't you use that nose of yours to sniff out some new words? And off he'd go. He'd fetch some nice ones like buttercup and bug and feather and nest. I'm looking for words, Rocket would announce to anyone who'd listen. Rocket always brought his words back to the classroom and wrote them down. The little yellow bird would help him spell the tricky ones, and then they'd hang them on their word tree. Sometimes the bird added her own words to the collection. This one is small, but I promise it'll come in handy, she'd say. If you can't see it, that word she's holding is up. Actually, it will come in handy in this story. You'll see. Magnificent, chirped the little yellow bird once their tree was covered. Now, what shall we do with all of these splendid words? Rocket thought all afternoon. Then he had an idea. Rocket left that day with a very waggy tail. I'm going to write a story, he declared to Fred and Emma. My story will be an adventure about the great wide world, he told a butterfly. I'll use many words, he explained to Mr. Barker. Hello up there, he called as he passed the tree where he had found the word nest. I'm going to write a story. The next day, Rocket returned to his classroom. It was time to begin. He looked down at the blank page, and the blank page looked up at him, but no story would come. At snack time, Rocket gave up. I don't know what to write, he told his teacher. Oh, don't worry, the little yellow bird replied. One of the hardest parts of writing is coming up with a good story. Perhaps you want to write about something you've seen. A bug? Asked Rocket. Yes, sang the teacher. Stories need good characters. Or what about something that happened to you? Or something you really enjoy? My favorite stick, suggested Rocket. Of course, said the bird. Or you could write about something that inspires you. Inspires me? Asked Rocket. Yes, something that excites you, the little bird sang. Rocket took a walk and looked for inspiration. He thought about friends he knew and places he'd been. He stuck his nose high in the air and sniffed the gentle breeze. And there it was, a delightful smell of pine needles and feathers. Inspiration. For the rest of the morning, he thought about feathers and pine needles and feathers. That afternoon, he started to write. In the evening, Rocket followed the beautiful smell until he found himself at the tree with the nest. Hello again, he called into the branches. Is anyone home? He heard rustling from above, but no one answered. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I must tell you that you smell nice. Very inspiring. May I ask who you are? Still nothing. Perhaps I'll come back at a more convenient time, he said, and trotted off. That night, as Rocket watched the stars, he thought about feathers and a nest in a pine tree. He thought about his story and his collection of words. On his way to school the next day, Rocket was surprised by what he saw. A brand new word, he said, and it's already written down. It says, he tried to sound the word out. Owl, came a quiet voice from the branches. It says, owl, that's me. Thank you, Owl, Rocket called. I'm always looking for words, and this one's a beauty. Rocket ran all the way to his classroom. O-W-L, owl. Now there's a word you don't hear every day, chirped the little yellow bird. Only 3 letters, but what a word. It was a present, explained Rocket. And he added the new word to his story. I'm writing a story about you, Rocket announced proudly to the owl the next morning. The owl poked her head out of her nest, and for the first time, Rocket saw her friendly face. Her big round eyes blinked below feathery tufts. About me? She asked softly. Would you like to come down and hear it? Asked Rocket. Thank you, but I think I'll listen from my nest, the owl answered. So Rocket cleared his throat and began to read. Once there was an owl, She smelled like feathers and pine needles. She lived in a tree. Owl's eyes widened. Is there more? There will be, said Rocket. Cute little owl. Each day, Rocket worked on his story. He wrote words down and crossed words out. When things were going well, he wagged his tail. When he didn't know what to write, he growled. Sometimes he drew pictures for his story or took a walk in the meadow to look for inspiration. The little yellow bird encouraged him. Remember, stories take time, she'd say. She wanted to know more about the owl and asked Rocket questions. Why do you think the owl wouldn't come down? What color is her beak? What does she do every day? Good questions. Rocket wanted to know more about the owl too. He visited her tree often and read her his story, which changed every day. The owl was captivated. And when Rocket stopped, she would always ask, then what happened? At last came the day when Rocket knew he was finished. What a fine story, chirped the little yellow bird after she read it. Rocket ran to the owl's pine tree. It's done, he called. Come listen. So down and down came the owl till she was right beside Rocket. Then Rocket began to read. He read about an owl with friendly eyes and a beak the color of a buttercup. She lived in a nest high in a tree on the edge of a meadow and smelled like pine needles and feathers. She liked to nap in the daytime and listen to stories. Branch by branch, the owl came down from her nest, read Rocket. She was shy, but she was brave too. Suddenly, Rocket stopped. He wrote something on his paper, then began to read again. One day, the owl came all the way down to the ground and became my friend. The owl blinked. Can there be one last sentence? She asked. Can you say, and the owl liked the story very much? A perfect ending, said Rocket. And it was. The end. Oh, what a sweet story. Rocket writes a story by Tad Mills. Such a sweet story. Also, with a lot of good lessons. Lessons about how to make friends. Lessons about finding inspiration, about loving words and loving reading. I especially like how Rocket didn't force the owl to be his friend. He gave the owl time. The owl probably didn't come down out of the tree very often. And like Rocket said, she was shy. But Rocket gave her time. He said, I want to talk to you. I want to tell you that I'm writing a story about pine needles and feathers. Who are you? Can you come down? And then he said, maybe I'll come back at a more convenient time. He didn't force the owl. And the owl came down and got to know Rocket in her own time. Sometimes when you want to become friends with people, even if you're in school, or for my adult friends, when you're at work or just in your groups and you want to make friends with people, sometimes people are shy, or sometimes people might be afraid. And you never know what those reasons are, why they are afraid or shy. But just show yourself friendly and give them time to come to you and be your friend. Maybe they will become your friend. Maybe they won't. But one thing they will know is that you are a friendly person. Okay? Now, I love our little bird teacher here. She was always very encouraging, always helping Rocket to think outside of the box and look for inspiration and things that inspire him. So even when he got stuck and he would get upset, he might take a walk in the meadow or think about things that make him think about Owl. Very good book. Loving books, loving words, and loving people and being friendly and kind. Very, very good book. So glad I got to read it. Well, my friends, now we get down to our mystery. Okay? We get down to our mystery. Who stole New Year's Eve? So, my friends, where we are is in chapter 11. Now, the last time we read, of course, we know that Eve and her family came from California. Her father is a professor at the university near where they live in College Springs, Pennsylvania, on Chickadee Court. Okay. And he has this new kind of fuel he's trying to create called gasoline. Mystery number one, he needs to find a compound that helps him to finish making gasoline, but we don't know what that compound is. Mystery number one. Mystery number two, there are secret tips coming into the police department, and Alex's mother still has not said what those tips are about. Mystery number two. Big mystery number three, Eve. Eve's birthday is on New Year's Day, and her mother is going to let her have a birthday party on New Year's Eve. Her uncle works for the moving company, but he is also an ice sculptor. And he sculpted her this huge ice sculpture of her on a skateboard with her hair blowing in the wind and her arms out to the sides. And someone has stolen Ice Eve. Now there's a mystery. There's some detecting that needs to happen. And Alex wants to detect with Eve, but he also wants to detect with Yasmeen, who he's been detecting with the whole time. That is his detective partner, okay, on Chickadee Court. But Eve is not a fan of Yasmeen is not a fan of Eve after she laughed at her singing. So when Alex went to her and said, now, do you want to detect with us? And she said, who is the us? Me and Eve? No, thank you. I don't want to. This is where we are now. Okay. Now, They're looking for some helpers to help them detect part of the reason why they went to Bub's house. But first, before detecting, what does Bub do better than anybody else? Soup. So we got to get to the soup and still tell Bub about what's going on. Chapter 11 of Who Stole New Year's Eve? Continuation of chapter 11. Of course, I said totally to the soup, but first I explained how Ice Eve was missing. Your birthday present? Al looked at Eve. That's a shame. Hard to imagine going to the trouble of stealing it. She was one heavy girl. I looked at Bub and Sophie. You didn't hear anything last night, did you? We figure she must have disappeared between 11 and about 6 this morning. Bub thought he'd heard a car sometime in the night, but he hadn't looked at the clock. Sophie hadn't heard anything. But I'm a sound sleeper, she added. So you're detecting again, are you? Bub asked. Where's Yasmeen? You mean you don't think I can solve a case without Yasmeen? I said. I didn't say that, Bub said, but up till now you and Yasmeen had been a team. Sophie cleared her throat and wagged her thumbs at herself. You and Yasmeen and Sophie? I'm sorry, and Sophie, said Bub quickly. Will you help us, Sophie? Eve asked. And it would be great if Yasmeen wanted to help too. Before the whole thing about Yasmeen could get awkward, I changed the subject. Told Sophie about the flyer and asked if her family's printer might be available. No problemo, Sophie said. And I bet Byron and his buddies would be happy to put them up too. With school out, they're driving Mom crazy, and she can tell them they're helping with a mystery. Can you email me the file, Eve? Eve said her mom would do it, and they each got out their phones. I don't have a phone, and I don't have a parent available to serve as my personal assistant. Yasmeen doesn't have those things either. Maybe that's one reason she and I have always gotten along. Always until now, I mean. Meanwhile, the girls arranged things about the flyers, and I went into the kitchen and served Eve and myself bowls of soup. When we were all settled back at the dining room table, I asked Bub to explain to Eve about solving a crime. Shucks, Bub tried to look modest. You mean you want me to serve in the way of an expert consultant? I nodded. If you hadn't shared all you know about mysteries from watching detective movies, Yasmeen and I never would have solved a single mystery. Bub leaned back in his chair and twiddled his thumbs, which he always does when he's thinking. Well, Eve, I can break it down to you right quick. How you solve a mystery is you look for the culprit who has three things: means, motive, and opportunity. Means a way to do it. Now, in this case, that's what you'd call critical, because not so many people have a way to steal an ice sculpture. I slurped a bit of soup and nodded. Good point. So in this case, I'd say you're looking for someone with a truck, for example, and a dolly, and plenty of upper body strength. Bub looked pointedly at Al, who made a bodybuilder pose to show his biceps. I've got all of the above, he said, but I didn't do it. Okay, means makes sense, Eve said. What about motive? Motive, Bub said, means you're looking for the culprit who some way or another benefits from the crime. Yeah, and who would benefit from owning a lump of ice? I asked. Eve looked at me. Hey! Oh, sorry, I said. A big lump of very cute ice? That's better, Eve said. Maybe the thief didn't want the ice, Sophie said. Maybe the thief just didn't want Eve to have a nice birthday. But nobody even knows me, Eve said. Sophie said some people are just mean and started to tell a story about her little brother Byron. Sophie talks a lot, and sometimes she gets way, way off the subject. I held up my hand. Sophie, we want to solve this case before the spring thaw. So can we make a deal? If you're talking too much, I make a sign so you know to be quiet. What sign? Sophie asked. I could tug on your earlobe. You could tug on your earlobe, Al said. Which earlobe? Sophie wanted to know. Either earlobe, I said, because I was afraid I'd forget and tug the wrong one and Sophie would just keep talking. But what if you have an itchy earlobe? Sophie asked. I looked at her. Fine, Sophie said. How about if I just don't say anything at all for the rest of the investigation? Would that make you happy? From his chair, Luau emitted a which meant we should be so lucky. I said, of course not. We need your help. Sophie grinned. You sure do. Then she looked at Bub. Tell her about opportunity. Then we better get out of here, right? We've got detecting to do. Bub nodded. I'm on it. Opportunity is in the way of when you do the crime. In this case, who could have been out and about in the middle of the night without anybody knowing? Now, Al here's got a wife, so if he got up and left, she'd rat him out. You better believe it, Al said. But old bachelors like me, there's nobody paying attention to what we're up to. Come to that, I've got a truck out there. So as of this moment, I'd say I'm your most likely suspect. Eve shook her head. I don't think so, Bub. You don't have a motive. Bub looked at me. The new kid is catching on quick. At the same time, Al stood up. This has all been very educational, but I gotta be going. Usually I get some relaxation time after the holiday rush, but not this year. I don't mind telling you, Eve, I've been run ragged with deliveries to the RSFZ of your dad. Not to mention, I'm up till all hours filling out paperwork for the hazmat permits he needs. What's RSFZ? I said. What's hazmat? RSFZ is the storage facility the college built for Eve's dad, Al said. And hazmat's short for hazardous materials. If you want to haul certain chemicals, you need a permit from the state. Sophie's eyes widened. You mean like dynamite? Sophie has always liked loud noise and destruction. Al shook his head. For dynamite, you need an explosives permit. And those are almost impossible to get. Hazmat covers things that aren't so volatile. Things like bleach or chlorine for a swimming pool. Volatile? There was that word again. Where had I just heard it? And what did it mean again? Al was putting on his coat when there was a thump on the porch. And a second later, the door opened right into him. It was Officer Crishells. Oh, sorry. Didn't see you there. Al winced and rubbed his face. No worries. My nose was crooked anyway. In Bub's living room, Officer Crishells picked up Luau, dropped him on the floor, and sat his long, skinny body down. Luau swished his tail. Oh, yeah? Jumped to the back of the recliner and lay down behind Officer Crishells' head. That way, he could keep watching his cowboy flicks. while at the same time batting Officer Crishol's in the face with his tail. Nice to see you all, Officer Crischel said, wiping cat fur from his face. You're the new girl, right? Eve. How are you? Eve said, fine, thank you. Then Officer Crischel said, where's Yasmeen? This where's Yasmeen business is getting old. But luckily, Bub explained that she had to practice for choir. In the meantime, I asked Eve if she wanted more soup. Eve looked down at her empty bowl. Oh, wow. I ate all that, didn't I? I never liked vegetables before. That'll happen, Bub said, because he knows his soup is the best. He was about to say more when his phone rang. It's an old-fashioned black one, with a bell and everything. So when I say rang, I mean rang. And Bub even had to get up out of his chair and walk across the room to answer it. Eve stared, then whispered, Is Bub Amish? Sophie and I cracked up, and Sophie shook her head. He's just Bub, she said. I ladled 2 more bowls of soup. Then I brought them back. When I brought them back, Bub was still on the phone, but not talking. And I realized after hello, he hadn't said a word. Every once in a while, he opened his mouth, but it was no good. Finally, he got exasperated. Excuse me? Who's this? Do I know you? This made whoever was on the other end laugh so hard, I heard it through the receiver. Oh, sorry, Bub said. Yes, of course, Bub shut his mouth. The person on the other end was worse than Sophie. Finally, Bub interrupted again. Excuse me, but I think I've got the gist. And at this rate, they'll be late before they even know they're wanted downtown. Thanks for calling. Bub hung up the receiver and shook his head. Don't tell me, said Officer Crischels. Angie Price? Bub pointed to Officer Crischels. Bingo. They explained everything. That explained everything. Miss Price is a dispatcher for the police department, and she also handles the phone sometimes. Talking to her can be an experience. Your mom asked her to call. Bub was looking at me. She wants to know if you kids can be at the station at 10:45. That's 15 minutes. You would have had half an hour if that woman hadn't kept me on the phone. I can take you if you don't mind the back of the police car, Officer Crischel said. Then, courtesy of another encounter with Luau's tail, he had a sneezing fit. Don't you want some soup, Fred? Bub asked. Shaking his head, Officer Crischel stood up, then answered between sneezes. I don't know why, but my allergies seem to be acting up. Luau hopped down onto the seat of the recliner, tail still swishing. I know why. Sophie swept the bits and pieces of calculator onto an old magazine and set it in the middle of the table. I'll see to this later, if that's okay, Bub. No rush, Bub, said Bub. It's been broken since along about 1985. Meanwhile, Eve slurped the last of her soup, popped up out of her chair and grinned. This is so exciting. So far, I love fighting crime. Sophie looked at me and rolled her eyes. Rookie. Well, my friends, we will end there. Wow. Chapter 11 has been very eventful. So Bub has clued Eve in on what it means to be a detective and all the things that you're looking for. means, motive, and opportunity. So now they're going to be thinking, so who had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to steal a huge ice sculpture? And now Alex's mother wants him and Eve, and now Sophie, to come down to the police station at 10:45. For what, I wonder? Another mystery. So now we got 4 mysteries that we got to figure out. Maybe it has something to do with the ice sculpture. Maybe it has something to do with these mystery tips that keep coming into the police station. We're going to have to find out on a wonderful Wednesday, my friends. Well, this has been a wonderful comeback, marvelous Monday on Miss Hope's Reading Hour. I am so glad, overjoyed, happy that I got to come back and be with you all. Now, after I'm done, guess what I got to do? Homework. Still got some work to do, but I will soldier on and get it done before the end of the week. Okay? Along with all of your encouragement and the joy of getting to read for you all on Miss Hope's Reading Hour on Wonderful Wednesday and Fabulous Friday. Okay? With all of that being said, friends, it has been so wonderful to be back with you all. And I look forward to our wonderful Wednesday. Until then, my friends, find some new words. Find some, write some new stories. And maybe, just maybe, make some new friends. Okay? Until Wonderful Wednesday. I will see you next time, right back here on Miss Hope's Reading Hour.